Good morning and welcome to Locally on the Links. I'm Rich Roth, joined in studio by the director of golf out at London Downs, Marty Chandler. Morning, Marty.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
How you doing?
Doing good. We are deep into May, and the weather is looking better and better. We're getting away from some of these cold mornings, so excited for the golf season to really get going.
Yeah, I mean, every time you look up, it's 80, 85, and then it's 60, and it's just... I thought we were kind of through that, but...
Yeah, we had back-to-back frosts in late April on like a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and I'm like, man, I thought these were in a rearview mirror, but hopefully now they are, and we'll just see some days where we're going to be selling some sunblock rather than hand warmers.
Obviously, it's tournament season too. Golf course in good shape, staying busy, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, this is the heart of our tournament season right now. So first part of May all the way up until Memorial Day, and then we'll see it kind of wane a little bit, just be regular golf for most of June and July. We'll have, I think, some city tournament we're hosting, a couple of other smaller events, and then we don't get back into a lot of the corporate outings till we get back into August, September.
Is that weather related, or is it more vacation related? Like, I mean, obviously these corporate outings, or especially the charity events, they're designed to raise money, and you want as many people, attending as possible. Summer gets, obviously people are traveling, vacationing. What gives? Is it more about the weather or the vacations, or what?
It revolves around the academic calendar, the school calendar.
Really?
And I think that once you get into June, kids are typically going to be off from school shortly after Memorial Day, so first, second week of June, and all the graduations and all that stuff wrap up, and people head to the beach, head to the lake, take time off. You have a lot of corporations around here that have mandatory vacation based on a July schedule, a quarterly schedule. So we tend to see people get out of town and do more travel, just like when we see gas prices spike a little bit during the summer because then the demand's going to be up with people on the move. We see that with golf tournaments. They know people are harder to pin down in June and July because of that. So I think most people tend to avoid those.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Weather, I would think, would be somewhat of a factor as well, but I guess people play golf anytime, right? You see, we talked back in the winter, if you had people out there who looked like Ralphie's little brother, and barely could swing the club. So people want to get out and play regardless of the time of year. What's your favorite time of year to play?
I fall for me,
fall.
But we're at a facility that is, goes dormant. So our Bermuda kicks in really hard over the next few weeks as we see the ground temperatures continue to go up. So our Bermuda's greened up really nicely this spring, but our mowing schedule typically is Monday, Wednesday, Friday for our fairways, and when it gets going, you can almost mow it more than that. I mean, that's the max you'd want to do, and right now we're mowing once or twice a week, so we know it is growing, but it's still not in that full bloom yet.
Gotcha.
So for us, I think our golf course shines better as we get into late summer, early fall. And so I enjoy that time of year. So some October, maybe even early November golf is really great. And then it gets a little frustrating. You start getting deep enough to where the leaves start falling, then it's a little bit tougher. But I really enjoy playing in the fall.
And you mentioned August, right? I mean, PGA Championship used to be played there, moved a few years back, to where we're at now. And, we're smack dab in the middle of it, actually at the tail end of it. And obviously we recorded this show earlier in the week. So, kind of looking ahead, golf course, I don't know that a lot of people are really all that familiar with heading into the week. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's been used on tour before, I think in maybe 2018, the last time the tour guys were there. So obviously technology in the last 8 years has changed. And so the golf course, I think, did go through, I don't know if they want to call it a renovation or restoration, however they want to term it. I think Gil Hans was involved with that. So it's interesting to see when it goes through that change, if the renovation creates a test of golf that meets or can withstand the technology boom that we've seen. I mean, guys are now looking at bunkers that are saying that bunker doesn't matter. I'm just going to just cook it over it and deal with it if it ends up in the rough. So there's a little concern that it could be like like the Bryson at the U.S. Open at Winged Foot a few years ago, where it was like
he didn't care.
Yeah, the strategy was
as far as you can.
Yeah, exactly. Just strokes gained. I want to be as close to the green as possible. I'll take a wedge out of the rough from 80 to 100 yards rather than guys hitting 7-irons from 175 from the fairway, quote unquote. So there is a little bit of uncertainty. Par is 70, so that can arbitrarily affect, because a lot of times we don't look at gross score when somebody wins a tournament. We look at what they are relative to par. And so let's say if Augusta all of a sudden now became a par 70 and the winning score was 8 shots, worse than what we see on the board, does it make it a better test of golf other than just kind of
moving the numbers?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Putting our thumb on the scale to say, oh, you're not going to win at 18 under, you're going to be 10 under instead.
Right, but it's the same score.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's whoever took the least amount of strokes for 4 days, not necessarily worrying about under par this or over par that.
But it's the same number at the end of the day, the 200 and whatever strokes.
If a guy
it's
shoots,
just a question of how many under par you are, right?
Yeah, if a guy shoots 280, is he even par or 8 under? Well, it's the arbitrary number that they say the par of the course is. Right. So it's still like he shot this number. So I think probably you're going to be somewhere in that I would think 11 to 15 under kind of situation based on everything that everyone's talking about. But I think Rory's quote the other day was talking about it's going to be interesting to see the technology angle versus this golf course, because he's like, all of us pretty much hit it far enough to where this golf course might struggle a little bit. The interesting part of the PGA typically is you have a lot of high rough around greens, so you don't necessarily need somebody that has a magical deft touch around, because basically they're just going to take their lob wedge, open it up a little bit, and just kind of hack it out and just try to judge the lie whether or not they're going to get a lot or a little bit of rollout or how much club face they can get on it. So sometimes you see guys that might not be the highest strokes gained guys around the greens for the year popping this, because you don't need as much control of the golf ball coming out of that rough.
Talking with Marty Chandler, director of golf at London Downs, here on Locally on the Links. And Marty, one of the things that amazes me is, and I'm curious to what extent you guys do this at London Downs, but the way that you can set up a golf course. And I'll use Pebble Beach as an example, because they'll play the Pro-Am earlier in the year, and then occasionally, right, I think it's in the U.S. Open rotation. I don't think we've seen it there in a while for the U.S. Open. But
maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, the guy that had the brain surgery. He won it the last time I was there.
So, but they'll have the two tournaments at the same golf course in the same year. And it'll be like a totally different golf course based on how you set it up, right? How wide or narrow you make the fairways, how long the rough is, how short you mow the greens. I mean, all those different things can play a huge role in like it being almost a totally different golf course. What about you guys at London Downs? Are there times where you want to make the course a little bit more difficult? Member guest, the tournament that's coming in. I mean, how do you guys do that? Is it all about playability and you want it to be as playable as possible? Or?
For us, when you run we're semi-private, so we're open to the public. People can certainly book tee times. We're looking for people to, for the most part, enjoy the experience, still get challenged in certain areas. There are certain times of year where the rough is certainly more penal. Normally, it would be this time of year because we typically come in with the most amount of precipitation, and we're coming into warm weather. And right now, we're seeing it's firm and fast, and we're not growing that as much rough because we haven't gotten as much rain. So the playability of the golf course is a lot of times determined by Mother Nature. When you have a typical spring with typical rains, it's tough to stay ahead and keep the rough down. And we saw that briefly as we just got into probably, we had a pretty warm end of March. When we airified, we had some couple of days like near 90, and we were getting some rain, and we had, the ability to have the rough to where we're not mowing it that much because we're just getting into kind of getting everything going again with the mowing schedule. And we'd have rough that was like left of hole 4 and left of hole 8 at our place that it was like, if you hit a ball over there, it's like you might have to march around a little bit before you found it if you didn't keep some eyes on it. But we'll see that change. We typically see like August and September when you really start losing the rough and you get into the hottest temperatures of the summer and probably the most likelihood for drought. balls can run out another extra 15, 20 yards if you hit it in the rough because it's firm, fast, there's no grass over there versus you still got your Bermuda that's just thriving in the fairways.
Right.
But for we don't necessarily try to like trick it up in any case. We hosted a VSGA event with some college ladies players this past spring, and VSGA kind of came in and they picked where they wanted some of the pins. So we had public play that day. And some of the people, that are regular players noticed that some of the pin positions were a little bit harder. And I'm like, well, yeah, exactly. It's like they took control of the pin positions for a couple of days. So sorry about that.
Marty, kind of circling back to the PGA, heading into the tournament, you talked a lot about the golf course. What about players' games that it suits? Who do you expect to play well? Obviously, the live players have not been playing well in majors, pretty recently, and there's a lot of talk.
Tyrrell Hatton had a fantastic showing at the Masters. Thank you very much.
Yeah. As a whole,
not the first player sometimes people think about, but yes, Tyrrell seems to love Augusta. He just ball strikes his way around there.
But as a whole, whether it be the number of tournaments, the number of rounds they're playing, a different, more laid-back style of golf, the live players aren't seeming, with the exception of Hatton, obviously, to have as much success as the tour guys. And now lives up in the air. I mean, there's a lot going on in golf right now.
Yeah, the whole live debate might be a moot point. End of this year. Yeah, it sounds like we certainly know that they are going to be looking for funding if they're going to try to survive in 2027. But I think I would expect John Rahm to the talent is the talent and the cream rises, but he certainly has just not done that I think he's kind of had a showing at last year's PGA for a minute. It was probably the most competitive he's been. But other than that, he's kind of been adrift. He's just not really doing much. But this is the kind of event where you sometimes have names pop up that aren't the ones that you're expecting. I mean, certainly like you could go chalk and go, all right, I like Scotty, I like Rory, I like Cam Young, I like Matt Fitzpatrick. You could just go down the list of the guys that are playing the best golf, right. But you could take somebody who hits it a long way and is, doesn't have to worry about this, fine-tuned shots, or from around the green. Like, hey, I'm just going to like knock it up next to the green and hack it out on some par fives.
And then their putter gets hot and next thing you know.
Yeah, it's like this guy who, hits it 330 but maybe isn't the best. I mean, Bryson, could be the case study of like, if you put Bryson from like 200 yards, he's really, really good because he can hit his 8-iron and has a golf club that he can control fairly well. And you put him at like 120, where it's kind of getting into a wedge territory, he's not that great. But if you get him to like 80 yards on the rough, to where it's like the strike's not really nearly as important as trying to control something off the fairway, it's like, hey, I'm just going to like hack it up on the green from somewhere and be chipping for eagle a lot, like he could pop. And there's other guys that are of his kind of his ilk. Aldrich Potgieter is a name that like showed up at the Masters, and he's young, talented, hits it a long way, but the Masters like destroyed him. Like he was cooked after 4 or 5 days. Yeah, it's like these shots off like closely mown areas and these knobs and trying to do all that, and it's like, man, it's he's not there yet as far as like that skill set, but he certainly has shown the ability to like blast it a long way, hit some wedges from, out of the rough to get it around the green. And like I said, the putter gets a little bit hot. It's going to be an interesting Masters or tournament, unlike the Masters, which you're going to pick the top names at the Masters, I think, every year.
So do you expect someone to kind of come out of nowhere, or
I think that's what kind of the PGA is right now, because it's got this weird spot in the schedule. We're still kind of coming off the Masters hangover. Like everybody still, you got a repeat winner there, which somebody called on the show, I think the last time we spoke. So because of them trying to find an identity, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. They obviously got 20 PGA pros that are kind of thrown in the mix. They're trying to find where this fits. It used to be, Glory's last shot at the end of the calendar, right. And now it's like they don't have that anymore. They don't necessarily get the best venues because the USGA gets a lot of those for the US Open. Playing in May, it's hard to necessarily go.
You can't really go to the Northeast.
Yeah, you're kind of you're kind of jammed up there. So it's like trying to find where they are. I think what they kind of hop into is like this is a championship that doesn't necessarily push you to the strokes gained guys that are like the easy ones to pick off your hey, this is who I'd put my money on. I think there's going to be some guys that are 50th in the world that all of a sudden pop back up. I mean, Victor Hovland has shown some stuff, has some wins. He showed out in the PGA. I think that Brooks won up in New York a few years ago, but he's not been doing a whole lot. But in places where he's gotten wins before, it's like, hey, get it around the green and just get your up and downs by opening your lob wedge up and hacking it out of the deep stuff. No, not necessarily trying to deal off a super tight lie where you got to have crisp, clean contact. So I think it's maybe a guy that's maybe fallen off a little bit, and this is a place where you can kind of find it a little bit. And I also think there might be a couple of names that flash up the leaderboard after a couple of days. They're like, who's this guy that people are going to have to do a little more research on?
Marty Chandler joining me here locally on the links. We've got to take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to talk a little bit about course management, some stuff going on at London Downs, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. More locally on the links right after this. Welcome back. Rich Roth, Marty Chandler from London Downs joining me here live, sort of.
Alive and well. Alive and well.
We're alive. Talking obviously golf and talked a bunch about the PGA. Interesting to see how that shapes up later on this afternoon. But Marty, you want to talk a little bit about course management, and everybody, it seems like, always wants tips to help their golf game. And in talking with you a number of times, I mean, you can work on the short game, the stance, the setup, all that stuff helps. But one of the, I don't know if it's easiest things to do, but maybe easiest things to help someone with is course management, because just playing a little bit smarter and playing within yourself is probably the quickest way to really help your score. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'll start with this. When you go to the range, tell me the 3 clubs that you probably hit the most during a practice session.
Me specifically?
Yeah, you.
Don't practice a ton.
Okay.
But when I do, I'll usually start out with a sand wedge, just hitting some chips, just trying to get the kind of bottom. Because I know you've talked about that a lot. I mean, if you go out to play around and don't have time to fully warm up, chipping is going to give you a little bit of the full swing, and it's going to give you a read on green speed and stuff like that. So, that's kind of how I'll loosen up, and then I'll go to a I don't know if it's a higher or lower iron, but like a 7-iron or something like that, and really try to groove that. And then
you're 2 for 2. What's that third one? We all know the third one's probably going to be.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't hit the driver, I'll probably grab like a 5-wood. Okay. Just to get a longer clubs, going in there. I mean, what am I doing wrong?
I think what you're doing is exactly what I would say 90% of golfers do. They hit a wedge of some sort, pitching wedge, sand wedge. Then they go to a 7-iron. Some might be an 8-iron, but it's a mid-iron typically somewhere. It's not quite a scoring iron, but you're certainly not going to grab a 3-iron.
Something that they're really comfortable with, and they're like, man, I want to have this club in my hand.
And then third is the driver. So typically, if they're only going to hit 3 clubs, it's going to be a wedge, a 7-iron, and a driver.
Yeah.
So that when you go out and play, let's say you hit an okay drive, like an okay drive on a par 5. What club do you normally grab for your second shot on any par 5? If you're in play in the fairway,
5-wood.
All right, so you grab a wood right away. Why do you hit your wood right away?
Because I can hit it the furthest and get it closest to the green.
Okay, so let's say you're on a 550 yard par 5.
Okay.
So let's say you hit your driver 250.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's say we did.
You
hit it really straight.
Must be downhill.
The sprinkler heads are in the middle, and I hit it really straight. So you have 300 yards in.
Okay.
And so for you, when you hit your 5-wood and you hit it really, really good, how far do you normally hit it?
200.
200. All right. So in terms of course management, let's say that those kind of dominoes line up to where that's pretty good. I would like the idea of like, all right, I hit my drive and play. I'm going to hit a shot that's going to leave me something to score with. The one that I run into is let's reverse the roles. All right. You hit a bad drive. Okay. So you hit it 200 off the tee.
Okay.
So now we have 350 yards, and we're in a really, really awful lie. Awful lie. Do you still just grab the 5-wood?
For me, it depends how bad the lie really is, because I feel like I can generally.
Let's say it's heavy rough and it's not flat either.
Okay, so I'm not really going to be able to get the club on it.
It's a really bad lie. Remember, you have 350 yards.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm that far out and I think I can get the club on it, I will take the 5-wood because I generally make pretty good contact with it, and I feel like I'm going to get it far enough up the, to at least have a shot to hit the green in 3.
Yeah. So when I talk, a lot of students, we do it like on course. We talk about reading lies, odds. Like what are the odds? Like if I don't hit this club really good off perfectly level lie off short grass on the range, then is that the one that I'm going to go to when the situation is the most difficult? But there is that discussion of like, well, I want to advance it as far as I possibly can, which is a great way to think about it. But there's also that, as far as I can, is that going to put me in a place that I'm good from? Mm-hmm. So we joke all the time that guys that are really awful wedge players, and I'm talking like finesse wedges, so you start getting inside of like 60 yards. When you get to like 75, 80 yards, you probably lob wedge, sand wedge you're okay with. But when you start getting in these like little half swings, if you are awful at that is a skill set that you don't work on, you don't practice. Maybe you have some bad nerves, so you chop on the ball or get really handsy with it. Why in the world do you play to that number all the time and put yourself in that position? So a short par 4, I hit driver, I can't get to the green, but it leaves me a weird number.
Right.
A par 5, I can't reach it in 2, but I can knock my 3-wood to an area where my skill set is the worst. And so sometimes I tell somebody, you hit driver off the tee on a par 5, you might be better off hitting 7-iron for your second shot so you have a full pitching wedge in, rather than hitting the 5-wood, hitting it to 50 yards, then flubbing that shot and then getting mad at yourself. If you're getting mad at yourself for not performing a skill that you knew you didn't have,
what are you doing?
We're dog chasing the tail at this point. I'm like, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If I'm bad from 50 yards today, probably going to be bad from 50 yards tomorrow until I work on it, or just go, I'm going to avoid that number.
Yeah.
Professionals are phenomenal at staying away from the stuff that they know, like, hey, I don't got that shot. And it's crazy to hear a guy who's one of the best 50 players in the world watch another player hit a shot and then go, I can't do that. Now, the problem is if they try to do it, they get themselves in the bad spots like we do. The smart ones go, that's not me. That's not my golf DNA. I'm just going to stay away from it. And so you as a player, I think someone has to recognize your DNA. And it's like, hey, if I stink from 85 yards and I'm much better from 115, get it to 115 as much as you can.
That's interesting. Couple minutes left. London Downs, what's going on out there? I mean, we talked earlier about the course conditions. I know you have demo days pretty much throughout the course of the year. I've done a number of them. They're great, right? Because you get to try out different clubs. You get professionally fitted for it, which is really important for people buying clubs.
Yeah, in June, I know we've got Titleist coming back, so we'll put out an email blast to anybody that's on our distribution list regarding the date for that one. Cleveland Shrixon is going to be coming back. We had to reschedule. We had a rain out one, so we will have a couple coming up here in June, though. If you aren't on our distribution list, just email me at londondownsgolf@gmail.com and we'll get that information out to you.
Marty Chandler joining me here for Locally on the Links. And in the final minute or so that we've got here, Marty, do you want to pick a winner in the PGA, knowing that we're, taping before the thing even starts?
I'm gonna ride the Cam Young train for a while.
Yeah, I mean, he was your other pick in the Masters, and he was right there too.
Yeah, he seems locked in. This is like he's starting one of these, like, I think 2 to 3 year runs where he's going to be in the mix a lot.
Wow. All right, so Cam Young.
I'm going to go 2 for 2 for majors this year.
You're ready for that gambling show, aren't you?
I'm telling you, get the gambling pod going here. We'll really get some people jazzed for the golf talk in Lynchburg with us running that ship.
Love that idea. We'll work on it.
Unfortunately, I'm 0 for my career coming into these 2 majors, but right now I'm 1 for 1 on a heater for 2026. I was 0 for career coming into that one, so we'll see. Maybe I've turned the corner myself.
Marty Chandler, London Downs, go visit him or check him out online where you can book your tee times, londondowns.com.
Come see us.